in organization, and I've broken it down into 3 areas: emotion and decision making, emotional intelligence, and this idea of emotional labor. And originally I thought I would talk about toxicity, but I figured that your class on conflict kind of provided us a way into talking about conflict if we did want to get into it today. But really I was more interested in the broader idea of emotion. So I find that quite exciting. And I think you'll have, as I said, I think students hopefully will have some experiences that they can relate to this topic as well, which will make it all the more interesting. Maybe we should just wait a few minutes as people now start to come in.
Yeah, I mean, 10:03 is really early Trini time. I know you know that already, but I mean, we asked for 10, but 10:03 is like, they're now like, oh, okay. Let me log in. Let me get breakfast started. But I appreciate, and I always note, and I appreciate those that are consistently on time. So
yes.
All right, I'm gonna run away and I'll be right back.
Great.
I can hear everything though.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording for a moment in case students have questions about assignments, and then we'll. Okay, welcome everyone to week 9 of group and organizational communication. We're heading into our final few weeks. I hope it's still as exciting as it was in the beginning. Notice the presumption in my question that it was exciting in the beginning. But in all seriousness, I hope that you are feeling like you're getting a sense of the way groups and organizations work in different ways, and the way communication intersects with group and organization. I know we had a comment at the beginning or earlier on saying that they felt this course felt more like a kind of business course. And that was one of the things that I was mindful of and aware of in putting the course together and using the Catherine Miller text, because I mean, I admitted that very early on, that it comes from this place of the corporate environment and the business world, which is why I kept trying to introduce other kinds of organization and encouraged you within your own queries and essays, for example, to look at other kinds of organization. So I hope that does address that some way. And certainly today, the topic is this. Let me go to the beginning and share my screen and show you this. Okay, so this is the topic for today. It is emotions and organization. Oh, and sorry, I'm moving things around. These 3 areas: decision-making, emotional labor, and emotional intelligence. A quick question to Greer. Is it possible for me to hide my notes, but also still control the slides?
I think that there is, but I don't use PowerPoint, so I don't know how to do it.
Okay.
I know that there's a way that you can view it, but I'm not too sure how PowerPoint and Zoom, how they get along.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You know what? Let's just go with it. So you guys will be able to see some of my notes.
That's okay.
That's fine. So, in some places it contains answers, which is why I'm kind of a little trying to hide some stuff, but that's okay. All right, no, let me just, well, I have a question here for everyone.
Okay.
You and I included, Greer, I suppose, but what do students see as the relationship between these three concepts? What do they know of them to start with, and how do they see them connecting? Let me get a student response. How integral is emotion in decision making? Can we separate those 2 things? How are they connected?
So sorry, can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yes, no problem. How is emotion, because that's the center of our topic today, how is emotion connected to decision making? What would you say is the relationship between emotion and decision making?
Well, I guess whatever emotion you're feeling, that will influence how you behave or react to a certain situation.
Okay, so your viewpoint is that it's inextricably linked, that it has to be involved. Or is it possible?
Most definitely, because I think I guess it's a brain thing. What you're feeling is how you will react.
Is it possible to train ourselves or to get into a place where we don't use emotion, where we can separate emotion from the decision-making process?
I believe some situations, but I think most of the time it has to do with your emotion.
Okay, all right. So then what you're saying, Rochelle, tell me if I'm wrong, you're saying that emotion is inextricably linked. It is the core principle, and we would have to work against using emotion in order to use logic to make a decision.
I agree. In order to make rational and the right decision, we need to take away our emotion from that.
Okay. I'm not necessarily making that point. I'm asking if you're making that point. When you say you agree, I'm trying to.
Oh, well, you just gave me an idea of what I wanted to say. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Okay. I see Sadira, you have your hand raised.
Hi, sir. I was just gonna say that you're supposed to not let your emotions influence your decision making. But then I see your answers at the end. But my thinking is that, for instance, if you're angry, you're not supposed to be impatient and make your decisions. You're supposed to still think through still go through your thought process and weigh the advantages and disadvantages of every decision.
Okay, so you're saying that there's a way in which the emotion in the decision-making process is seen as undesirable, particularly if it's an emotion that is, or there are ways in which we can say there are emotions useful to decision-making and emotions which are unuseful, detrimental to clear decision-making. Is that what you're saying, Sadira?
Yeah. So no matter emotion, you're still supposed to think through your supposed to think through your decisions, not just make a rash decision.
When you say supposed to, from who's saying, whose perspective? Like, why do you say you're supposed to?
Oh, I don't know. I just want to say that no matter what emotion you're feeling at that point, as a leader, if you're feeling upset about the input, the kind of feedback that I don't know how to phrase I don't know how to phrase it, but you're not supposed to let the emotions of all the group members influence your decision.
Okay.
I don't know if that's,
yeah. All right. So what do you think, Greer? I see you shaking your head to that, or querying it maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of waiting for her to clarify what I can see her, I can hear the thinking through her words. So I'm just waiting for her to get there. But yeah, I get that. I understand what she's trying to say, and I do.
To get
there. I'm on my second cup of coffee, so but I'm also like, but yeah, I don't want to say much because I want to hear from other people. So we have two hands up. Well, sure. No, Sadira, you want to put your hand up again, or you want to?
No. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Khadija.
Hi, morning, everyone. Excuse my wake-up voice. But I think what she was trying to say is that you should give yourself a fair chance regardless of your emotions. So you should still have this logical thinking process, whether you're angry, whether you're happy, and not, make that rash decision. Also, I think sometimes based on negative experiences where you initially let your emotions influence your decision, if you have a bad experience with that, the next time you'll be like, okay, I need to not do this, and you'll train yourself to think logically and not let your emotions influence the decision. That's what I think.
I like that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is really good. We have very evolved, I would say, and kind of nuanced ideas around emotion and decision making and emotion generally, which is good. I should probably have thought to do this topic earlier to get
Micah said people usually use emotions, but it's better to not use emotions in most situations, especially if it's strong emotions.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, I guess I'm biased because I'm a very emotional and loud person. So,
okay.
But it has got me in trouble. I have the wisdom now to know when to pop down, but yeah.
Right.
Once upon a time, I did not have that wisdom.
Right. So from Mika, though, there's this idea that, you know, emotions might be undesirable. Is that right? Did I get it right?
And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I don't know if he's leaning towards, or if he's being a bit gender.
Okay.
I don't want to say feminist or sexist or anything like that, but I don't know if in his mind, reading between the lines and reading between the words, if he's starting to think about women can be more, because just because that's what most men would say, might tend to be more emotional. And if it's anybody to check themselves in a situation with their emotions and the decisions that they make, it might be, you know, that's what people tend to say. I don't know why, but that's what people tend to say about women.
You know what? I do want to consider gender.
I'm sure you're getting to that. I'm waiting for that.
I do want to consider gender and emotion. And I actually, so it's not in my words, I have it from a couple of other researchers who are talking about the relationship between gender and emotion and, making those kind of connections for us. And they're quite interesting. They're not, you know, anyway, we'll wait till we get to them before I say any more.
Okay.
All right, let me just make sure I've covered what I wanted to on this slide. Okay, all right, so let's move on. So one of the things that we covered, we are recording this, aren't we, Greer?
Yeah, it's recording.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things that we covered earlier on in the course, and I forget which week it was, but we spoke about decision making, and I took that from the Catherine Miller text. And there was this idea of the logical process, and the logical process, which provides us with this rational model, is to do this thing that we would do and go through this process that we would go through, where we take the information, we filter it, and then make a rational, logical decision. And that's the overarching viewpoint and approach to a logical process. She has it as 5 steps. I just reduced it to 3. And I wanted to ask this question of people in the room: when is this process insufficient? When do you see it as insufficient? And I suppose by corollary, when do you see it as working and appropriate? Maybe Mika has a point on this, since Mika was saying about emotion maybe having negative places where it comes out. Mika? Any thoughts on this one? When do you think this might work well? And when might it not work well? So we're going to have long periods of silence in this recording when someone listens back to it. Come on, morning people. Look, it's past already. We're now well and truly awake, hopefully.
I think a situation where someone might use this, is it like, let's say in the courtroom?
Okay. Do you think we're more logical in the courtroom then?
Well, I would like to believe that we are. We should be.
Right. So,
but
okay.
I think here in the courtroom is where you will see that they gather information and everybody in the room will make an evaluation and then come to a logical decision.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much in there, isn't there, Rochelle? Yeah. About the possibility of, or the places where emotions are involved. Do you ever, Rochelle, do you ever watch like Law and Order or any of those kind of courtroom?
Yes, I love Law and Order, SVU.
Right, exactly. And all of those dramas, all of those TV kind of dramas that involve courtroom. Does it seem like a completely logical based process to you from what you see there?
No, and from what I've seen in actual situations that occurred in the past, so like you see sometimes, depending on someone's race, one person will get a heavier sentence than the next. And I think that has to do with emotions and it's not necessarily based on rationality. So, but it's supposed to be the other way around.
Okay. I get you. So you're saying in the courtroom there's a desire for a kind of logical thinking process, and you think that is the one that would be the kind of desired approach to considering information and making decisions. Okay. Yeah. I think I wouldn't disagree with you there, that is the desire perhaps. I had this idea, and maybe Greer would be able to say a bit more about this, that there are ways in which HR can sometimes use processes like these, meaning that HR also would, you know, kind of take documentation to prove certain kinds of criteria that people have reached. It's like using a rubric almost. And, you know, obviously there are different schools of thinking within HR, and the degree to which you kind of assess people on task-based questions and then also merit-based questions on levels that are reached, point systems, that kind of thing. I don't know, Greer, do you have any thoughts or any points on how you've seen a logical-based process versus an emotional and logical-based process work effectively and ineffectively in hiring processes?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, when you bring personal feelings into the situation, we've all seen that happen at work. Like, you know, it plays a part in it. But the other thing that comes to mind is when you think of the organizational culture or the behavior of the organization, there are those organizations that are more rigid for whatever reason. And so, you know, no tolerance for this, no tolerance for that. For the most part, when you walk in the door and you get the job, you know what the no tolerance, you know, non-negotiable areas are. And then there are other organizations that want to foster and not inhibit. So they're a bit more lenient. And I think that could play a part in that evaluation process. So you might think that it's emotions or it's personal feelings or whatnot. But if the basis of the organizational behavior is to not stifle. So similarly to raising a child, you know, some parents are strict and rigid, and some parents are more lenient and would allow a child to express their emotions and their tantrums and their rudeness. So some would consider it rude, but those parents are using a tactic of not inhibiting their children's emotional tantrums at a young age. So while some people looking on the outside in might be easy to say personal feelings have gotten involved there or emotions have gotten involved there, it might just be the vibe of the organization and how that, you know, logical decision is made. So what is logical to you based on the context and the criteria would be different for another organization or another group.
Right. I've also heard it said that as someone develops expertise, actually using less of a logical process and more of an emotional one. So there is a kind of a shift within organizations as a leader or as an employee gets more kind of, you know, capable, more familiar with a particular task.
Yeah. And I think that along with what you just said, that reminds me of something else I read somewhere where it's like if a problem keeps recurring, or an issue, I shouldn't say a problem, because obviously you're going to solution the problem so it doesn't keep recurring. But there are some issues that are just out of your hand, external factors or what it might be, keeps recurring. So at first you flipped out. You know, we all flipped out at the beginning of the pandemic with the challenges that it brought, and we have become complacent. And, you know, how many times has this may have happened to someone on a personal level, that someone's like, how come you're not flipping out about this? Usually you would, you know, lose your shit because of something that has happened, like you don't like when it happens, but that you reach a point where it's just like, all right, it's happened again, deal with it. So that as well could happen, I think, in an organization. Oh, okay, the issue has happened again, we have to deal with it, get over it. Whereas in the earlies, or when it first started happening, or the first time it happened, it was a huge deal, a huge inhibiting factor.
Got you.
Now that same exact factor is just no longer as, because we're accustomed to it.
Yes, right.
Complacent, given up, whatever.
Really, really good point. I would like to come back to that idea and characterize it within the communication context in terms of what is actually happening with emotion. So I'll come back to that. But that's a really good point. All right. Okay, so just, let's look at my notes together. A couple of things that we, got from the Miller text is when decision-making, we have this satisficing decision-making process where it's not optimal, but it's just good enough based on the circumstances. That was another way in which the reality of decision-making within organization had been researched and discovered. And this idea of bounded rationality, you know, they are rational, therefore they're not irrational, but they have to take into account multiple variables, and maybe they're not always measuring them in a logical way, but some of it's emotion and some of it's logic. Yes, all right. So now here, let's, how do I, there we go. All right, so who knows this character? Does anyone know this character? I was going to pull up the actor, but I decided to use the kind of comic image instead to see if people recognize him. Who knows this character?
Not a clue.
No?
Yes, you do, Rochelle. You don't know that you know, but you know. I feel like the ring around his hand is a clue.
And maybe the cape.
The cape and the teapot, weirdly enough.
Yeah,
like,
true.
No other...
Persons in the comment section are saying Dr. Strange.
Yeah.
There we go. And how did Dr. Strange work through, I don't know if you can remember, I've seen him in a couple of movies. I think the character's been in a couple of movies, but how does he work, if you can recall? In terms of making decisions, I should say.
He looks through all the possibilities and then makes a decision based on the best one, I think.
Yes, exactly. He looks through all the possibilities, goes through all the kind of multiple ways of things panning out, and then makes a decision based on that.
So right. Another show you could have related it to is Monk. If anyone ever saw Monk.
Monk. Oh, I don't know Monk. Does Monk do that? Is that a character?
Yeah.
He was investigator. So what he'll do, he'll find evidence, and then he will think about logical situations, and then come to his decision.
Yeah, that
was a good one.
Actually.
A good example. Okay. As I think about it, I think Sherlock Holmes, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Yes, he also goes. Yes, he also goes through that kind of process really quickly. You know, that's how the character does it. All right, so I want us to take a look at a short video, because we're still exploring this idea of the relationship between emotion and or the role of emotion in decision making. So let me just bring up a tab here if I can. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Go to a tab and then bring you guys back in. Let's see if I'm doing this right. Okay, so this is probably blocking us. All right, so I want to watch this video together and consider the ways in which emotion is connected to decision making according to what is indicated in this video. I think someone has their mic on. I don't know if that's, or anyway, here we go.
What if I told you that there's no such thing as a purely rational decision? Because you cannot make any decision in the absence of emotion. Back in the late 1800s, there was a railroad worker named Phineas Gage. While he was working, there was an explosion, and a long metal rod shot through his left cheek and out the top of his head, causing him to lose a big chunk of his brain, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex to be exact. When he hit the ground, everyone assumed he was dead. Surprisingly, within a few minutes, he was actually back on his feet. But something was off. He could no longer control his emotions, nor could he make rational decisions. Now, fast forward almost 100 years. There was a neuroscientist, Antonio Damasio, who had a patient with a brain tumor in that same part of the brain that Phineas Gage lost. Damasio saved his patient by removing the entire brain region where the tumor was. Sure enough, post-surgery, his patient ended up experiencing the same thing as Phineas Gage. Damasio went on to write the seminal work describing how emotions and decisions are actually intrinsically intertwined. You cannot separate them. If you were to make a decision and rely on reason alone, you would have to analyze a never-ending list of variables. So instead, human beings have evolved to use emotion as a shortcut for decision-making. That thing you call your gut is actually emotion nudging you in the right direction. This makes life a lot more efficient. Now let's apply this to advertising. The problem in...
Okay, hi everyone. All right, so we're not going to apply it to advertising because that's what he is interested in doing. What I want to do is come back to this. Sorry. What I want to do is bring you back to the slides. Where are we? Here we go. All right, so what do you think about that, everyone? So, okay, what did you take from the video? What did he say was the process that emotion, or how is emotion involved in decision making according to that video? We're just regurgitating what we heard at this point.
But basically, that is the makeup of our brain, and we can't separate the two.
Right,
Otherwise,
so
we'll have to analyze different, he said, I guess, infinite situations in order to come to a logical decision. So basically, we can't separate the two.
So I think he was saying what you said at the beginning, Rochelle, which is that it's impossible to separate the two. And he said that the logical brain would have to work through an infinite number of possibilities, like Dr. Strange, I'm saying, and someone said Monk and others, in order to come up with a, excuse me, a good decision or make a clear decision. And therefore, emotion was used as a shortcut for that process. And therefore, that's what gut instinct is. So who agrees with that that's what emotion is doing?
I agree.
You do? Okay. That's clear cut. Anyone else?
Yeah, I feel like it helps decision making.
Okay.
Like become easier.
Oh, sorry. I've done something weird with my, how can I get back to where we were? Okay, here we are. Sorry, I keep changing the shape. Are you guys seeing what I'm doing? I'm changing the shape of the way the cameras appear. No, okay. Greer, what did you think of that? So everyone's agreeing that that's the way those two things are connected.
I think sometimes we don't want to admit that it is emotions that drives our decisions, especially when that means we have to admit we overreacted or we were wrong. So I actually think that coming to terms with that and admitting that at the end of the day, whether we think it or not, emotions drives our decisions. It's sort of one of those times where you take that long, hard look in the mirror and admittedly, my emotions do drive my decisions, regardless of, you know, good decisions or bad decisions. It's emotions that are making it, not the majority of logic and reasoning. We would like to think that, I think, that it's logic and reasoning.
Right.
That we are somehow, logic and reasoning means you have more grip and, you know, you're more in control and you're more intelligent and you're, you know, in control of who you are and you're sure of yourself and your courage, you have confidence and all that. But all the confidence in the world, you still have to admit that at the end of the day, it's emotions that drive your decision.
Right. So what he was saying was that emotions is a shortcut for going through all the logic, and you know, he used the term gut instinct to say that's what's happening. So we, you know, he's saying the gut instinct process stops us having to think through all the possibilities.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
Right. Yeah, I think it is sort of a shortcut, especially especially when it's a scenario that you can base on experience. Been here, done this, shortcut. Like, I know what needs to be done here. I don't need to go through all the, you know, steps and logical and options and all of that. I already know how this show ends. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. So. All right. Now let's contrast that, or not necessarily contrast rather, but let's take another look at somebody else who talks about the way emotion is involved in decision making. And this is from a psychotherapist, and her name is Marissa Peer. And I kind of quite like the way she speaks, but she sounds very like laid back. She's got a very chilled way. I think Greer might like her. Do you know Marissa? Have you ever come across her? Oh, okay.
I can't say that I have. Maybe when I start here now, I'll remember. But right now, I don't remember coming across her.
So she's done various kind of TED Talks and stuff.
Okay.
But she's a celebrity kind of, not life coach, psychotherapist, which is quite interesting. Anyway, let's have a look at her video. I'm going to stop this, open my YouTube again, and let's see something from Marissa. Come back here, share screen. Let's do that. Okay, so we're just going to watch a minute and a half of this and hear what she says and how she defines the role of emotion in decision making.
Many people every day fight the same battle, and the battle is between logic and emotion. I logically know I shouldn't eat cake. I logically know I should get up early and go to bed early. I logically know that sitting on the sofa watching box sets is not going to advance my career, but I still do it over and over again. That must be because I'm a loser or I'm weak. No, you're not a loser. You're not weak. What's happening is you haven't been taught a universal truth, so let me teach it to you right now. When there is a battle between logic and emotion, emotion always wins. How many of you have gone to a really high building, an enclosed building like the top story of a hotel or the CN Tower in Toronto, and looked down and thought, oh, wow, I feel really scared. My logic mind knows that I'm safe, that the glass is that thick, that I can't fall, but the emotion that's making my stomach lurch is winning. So when you have a battle between emotion and logic, emotion always wins. Here's something you all know. We can all ring our friend up, go, I'm a bit bored, a bit lonely. Can I hang out? Or I'm a bit bored, let's go to the movie. You would never ring someone you've just met and go, I'm bored and lonely. will you come and hang out with me? Let's go to the movie, because the emotion that you might be rejected will overrule the logic that says this person may be the person for me. So if you're having a battle between yourself, here's a great one. I know I shouldn't eat cake. That's the logic.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. She's really quite interesting, but you know, we can watch that in our own times, I think. All right, so let me come back to this screen with my slides. Not as exciting as Marissa, I'm afraid, but here we go. Nonetheless, all right, so what is her summary, anyone in the room, what is her summary for how emotion is defined here?
I suppose in summary, it's just that naturally emotion wins out over any attempt of choosing logic. Like going with the logical reasoning, like emotional reasoning always wins.
Yes, but can you characterize it for me? What she's saying about emotion, like she used the example of things that we know we shouldn't do. She also used the example of going up a high tower and standing next to the edge of the glass and looking down and seeing the ground and feeling fear. How would you characterize what she's saying emotion is doing, or emotion is?
Like, I guess it's a control. I'm not sure if that's what you're looking for, but
control,
it's almost like a safety net kind of thing. Like it keeps you in certain situations. Like it almost saves face. Yeah, I'm not sure.
What did well, let me define it as I think she said it, or come up with the word. I think she was saying that emotion is irrational, that when we know that we shouldn't be fearful because there's a really thick glass, actually we know we're not going to fall because the glass is there. We still have this kind of, you know, I guess an evolutionary impulse to be scared, and it's not rational. And in the first video, we had emotion is a gut feeling, and therefore it is a shortcut. What did you think of this video, Greer? Is she in agreement with what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, like totally. I especially with together with the first video, with, you know, coming to terms with it being the baseline of how we make our decisions, and it not necessarily being on logic and reason, because we know what the logical thing to do is. And if we know what the logical thing to do is, how come we don't always choose the logical thing to do? So that in itself is evidence that we go with our emotions, we go with our gut feeling. Right. I did have a thought though. It reminded me of something that blew my mind when I was studying in London, and we learned about kids. Because I forget which class this is, but I think it was consumer behavior. And we were exploring how much what our parents do or the people around us do as children, how much that influences our consumer behavior as adults. And one of the things I learned that blew my mind was that kids do not have the ability of logic and reasoning until they're about 7 years old.
Yes.
So that makes sense, because you know a 6-year-old or 5-year-old, by the time they're 4 or 5, they know right or wrong, but they don't have the ability to assess logic and reasoning. So when we say, as Trinis like to say, these children never listen, they don't have the ability to process logic and reasoning anytime before 7 years old. And that just was like, ooh, to me. And so they're definitely making decisions based on emotion, based on feelings as a child. So if we can understand that and then kind of notice, okay, we have a logical decision to be made here. Don't eat the cake. We know what happens when we eat the cake, but our feelings, our emotions, you know. And
yes.
Yeah.
So so just to summarize then, from the first video, we heard about gut instinct and the idea that emotion, and these are just, I guess, theories, these are just ideas because people may contradict them. But the idea from the first video is that emotion is a useful mechanism for scrapping away or a shortcut through all the logical processes, and gut instinct will make us choose things. What Marissa is saying in the second video is that emotion is actually irrational, and it can be self-sabotaging for us, and we need to find ways of controlling emotion. So they're both saying something slightly different about the way emotion works in decision making. I'm now going to attempt to prove that there is a third way. I was going to say that they're both wrong, but that's way too pig-headed, and that's not what I'm saying. But I think there is another way, and I want to actually have us watch a video together and have some thoughts, or share our thoughts rather, on a particular episode that occurs between two people. Now, I'm going to use a Jerry Springer video to help us learn some life lessons. That's my aim. And I'm going to attempt to prove to you that there is a third way. Oh, what am I doing here? Sorry, I'm going to attempt to prove to you that there is a third way in which emotion can be considered in the decision-making process. Now, let me see where I go with this. Right, so I'm saying that it's neither gut nor in opposition, but I want to suggest that emotion can be used as an informational category, i.e. we get the emotional data and we consider it as a useful source of information. So not gut, but that we consider it logically. And therefore I'm going to say that we can have, I came up with a better term for it. What did I say? Rational emotion or something like that. So I want us to watch this video just now and then answer some questions. All right, so let me stop sharing here and come up with this video. Okay, so trigger warning, there is some bad behavior from a group of people, which I guess you can expect from Jerry Springer. But if you're offended at the idea of a couple of scrap, then you should look away, because that does happen. And of course, there's a boy involved, there's a guy involved. So let's have a look at this video and see what we get from it in terms of some questions I'm going to ask you after.
Olivia says nothing or no one will come between her friendship. Olivia, what's going on?
First of all, I'm a big fan. I've been watching you since I was a little baby. Anyway, I'm here today to confront my bestie's girlfriend because she blocked me on both of their social medias.
Oh.
And I know it was that bitch because she blocked 20 other people off his Instagram and Snapchat.
Oh, okay. So you have a guy friend.
Yeah, my best friend. We're best friends, stuck like glue.
So you're not upset that he has a girlfriend?
No, not so much. It's just the way she's acting.
She's trying to block
me out. Yeah. Me and Eric have been best friends since 6th grade, like literally stuck like glue. We did everything together. We spent birthdays, holidays together. We just do everything. And she's cutting into my best friend time. Like we don't do anything we used to do. We don't go to the movies anymore. We don't go to Dave & Buster's, and we don't smoke and chill without her being right there.
Oh.
She's right there. And she treats me like I'm a third wheel. I'm not going to feel like that. Like, I'm not trying to break them up or anything, but she needs to know, like, I have a spot in my best friend's life that I'm not giving up.
Right. There you go. Good for you. All right. Now, how old are you?
I'm 19.
Okay, you're very mature for that. Okay. Let's bring out this woman. Here's Bree.
because I know you want my man just like all the other girls. Girls get blocked every single day. Just for sending emojis, they get blocked. Girls get blocked just for having a conversation for too long. Even if a girl's pretty, she gets blocked. What makes you think you're any different?
You should know that if I wanted Eric, I could have had Eric a long time ago. I've known him for 7 years.
What makes you think you're going to be with him any longer? What makes you think I'm not going to have a future with him?
He doesn't need a future with you. He needs somebody better than you. You don't for him.
I'm his girlfriend, not his best friend.
You don't even need.
What are you?
He needs somebody like me to help him, motivate him in life. You do nothing for him. You use him.
I don't use him. What do you mean I got this man a job?
You use him and you're already talking about babies?
We're too young. About babies. I want to know. It's a boyfriend.
No.
I want to know if I'm having a future with him.
Having a future? You need babies to have a future?
I don't need babies, but I want to know.
That's his life. You're not about to mess with my best friend's life. Period. I've been here before you. I'll be here after you.
Okay, apologies for the scrapping. They do stop just now. It is going to move on. All right, so they stop, slapping each other up, which it kind of triggers me. I get upset watching it. But so we're moving on a bit, right?
So can you turn the volume a little bit more, please?
Sorry, turn up the video, up the volume.
The volume, yeah.
Oh, sure. It's right in my ears, so I'm going to have to kind of unplug one ear, I think. But here we go. Better?
Yeah.
Just break up with her for no reason.
You need to pick either me or her.
I can't choose between both of you guys though.
Why?
I can't choose between either one because I love you guys individually. Like I love you.
Okay, but you want a future with me. You want to have things with me. You want to build a life with me. What is she?
She's my best friend. I grew up with her. Like you want me to drop her off out of nowhere?
What have you done for him?
We're best friends. We grew up together. We've done everything together. I motivate him.
I mean, but like you guys can't like be fighting like this. Like we need to settle.
You need to choose. You need to get rid of her. She's not good.
We're like a best friend. Like we grew up together. We did everything together. So you can't just be like trying to take her out of my life out of nowhere. But I do love you type of way. Like
if you really love me, then you would pick me over her.
I can't do that. I can't just pick.
It's been 3 months. I've been here for 7 years.
Okay, and I'm gonna be way longer than you, bitch.
You're only with her because I told you. I told you to wait until we were older. I'd give you a chance.
The only reason.
And that's the only. No, I told you I'd give you a chance.
Right.
You just had to wait.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh,
yeah,
you mean you were interested in her?
Yeah. Started hanging out, like being her attractive, and I was like, oh yeah, I mean she's cute.
See, I knew it. You're a sneaky ass bitch.
Well, I'll be here. And if I don't find no one else, I'll go with Eric.
Not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen, all right? So, because this is my girlfriend, like you can't just take me away from her.
No, you have to pick one.
I can't pick one. You guys are gonna have to get used to it.
All right, so apparently, so what you're saying is if she's still in the picture, you'll leave. So you, I assume, going to be your best friend. Yeah. So you have to decide: are you willing to give up?
I mean, I don't cut her off. If you have guy friends and I have girlfriends.
Okay,
like, so
but girls are manipulative. They will do anything they want to get what
years.
they want. That's the nature of a woman. I'm a woman, I know.
We used to sleep in the same bed and nothing ever happened. So why would it just
I
happen
believe that.
You don't have to believe it.
We used to go out all the time. We used to go to movies, like everything. We used to get accused of dating, but we never did anything at all.
Never did anything, but I could have done everything if I wanted to.
Okay, well, you're all young, and I see what you're saying. You're nervous about a relationship with a best friend. But even from your point of view, you can't break best friends up. It never works because for so long. So you have to decide. I'm not saying what you should decide. I'm not going to put up with that. I'll find some type of competition. But that's your decision. Yeah, I'd say you got to decide whether you want to.
I don't think I should have a relationship with another woman in my relationship.
Okay, great. We'll be back.
Welcome back to the room. All right, so there was a lot going on there, and I actually some days breaking it down, and I think I'm going something that is a life lesson as taught by what. So, all right, now through the as I thought about it, to break down some of the things that came off as logical things that were based on emotion, and see if we can find a way that those two things relate, therefore can frame emotion in a different way to what we've heard so far from the first two videos, in gut instinct and the other being irrational. All right, so let me on saying what we think should happen between the three of them, but is my video, or is it blocking the slide? No, it's not.
No, we can see the slide.
Really struggling to. I'm trying to. Sorry, I'm struggling a bit because I'm trying to see who's the cameras that are on. That's you and me, but it's coming up in a box of 4 strip, and I don't know how to change it.
The view of our squares, you mean?
Yes.
On Zoom? Okay, so there's a little square near the top that says view.
Square.
Where the time comes down.
I have. Oh, view. Under video. No. Let me round it. Just ignore it for the night. Okay. So here's the way I was thinking about it. Right. So the first thing is, if we assume that we're okay with those three friends remaining as they are, what information serves as proof that each person's status quo should remain? What bits of information serve as proof to each? So from I've forgotten the names. Was it? That's Eric and Flowers, because it was just I kept forgetting what their names were. Bree and Olivia, I think. Anyway, the girl in blue. Yeah. What was her best argument?
That she was friends with the boy for years,
mm-hmm.
and that they had a relationship as friends, and that was purely based on friendship. And despite the fact they never engaged in anything,
mm-hmm.
so they should be able to remain as friends.
Yes, exactly. They have history, and that their years of friendship proves that you know, nothing ever happened. What about Eric? What was his argument that serves as status quo is working?
I think that's them. Sorry, go ahead.
His argument was that he loved the both of them, but in different ways, and that he should still have a relationship with each of them, and that it wouldn't affect.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Kenny?
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. So essentially, he was saying the same thing that she was, that we've been friends for so long, nothing has ever happened. And therefore, you know, everything's fine. What about the girl in the flower dress, the girlfriend? Did she have an argument for saying that things should remain? Or just arguments against? So the second part, what bits of information reveal a validity to the assertion that a situation changing decision should be made? I've gone and written these really complicated and flowery sounding questions, which basically the same, or change things. I was just trying to make it super clear, and I really, the language is really kind of a bit much. But anyway, yes, what did you get, people in the room?
Her argument was that she didn't want to be in a relationship with her boyfriend and someone else, which I agree with her with.
You do?
And yeah.
Why?
I feel like she's from other experiences into this, and even though it's not applicable in this situation, according to the evidence and like the reports from her boyfriend, who she so loves and I guess trusts, and the other girl, but she's like applying almost irrelevant information, and like she's saying that girls are manipulative, but she's actually like being the manipulative player in the three of them.
Yeah,
because like she has nothing to stand on in this situation.
Right. I saw Greer gasp when she said, yeah, all girls are sneaky, or shake her head. Or what did you think, Greer?
I mean, I think I was there, like they had me, and then as soon as he walked on the stage, they lost me.
Oh, really?
I don't know. Yeah, he just looks like he's 12 years old, so both of them need to check themselves. But but I got both sides. But the thing is, like, the argument of we've been friends for so long, we've been friends since whatever, they were kids or whatever, that hole started to poke in that argument, and it no longer held water for me, especially when they started to both admit how close they were and that they had discussed being in a relationship. Just holes started appearing all over the place with it. And the only argument the girlfriend had was that I'm his girlfriend and therefore there's no room for anybody else, which on its own doesn't hold water, because a best friend is a best friend regardless of gender, right? But so on its own, it was a good, it was like, that was the only thing she had. I am the girlfriend. I have the title of the girlfriend, and I'm not sharing him with anybody else. And they just made a mess of it afterwards. But
yeah, I know watching the fighting was really upsetting, but you know, it happens. So look, here are some of the notes that I made. So, and these are exactly what everyone's been saying. The girl in blue said, we've been friends for years, nothing has happened. The boy said, we grew up together, she's like a sister, nothing happened. The girlfriend, you know, she had no proof she had nothing that she could use as proof for what she was saying within. She did say, you know, girls are sneaky and they're always sneaky. Now, let me just go to the next slide. Oops, here we go. Okay, right. But as Greer was saying, let's come back here. What were the things that kind of poked holes in the argument for you, that maybe the girl in blue wasn't being completely honourable or was being provocative, maybe? What did she say?
Sorry. I feel like she didn't need to come to the other girl. Like, I could have if I wanted to, because if you know you're really genuinely coming from friendship and that is your friend and you just want to, you know, be friends with the boy, by saying those kind of things, you kind of probably setting flowers up for thinking, you know, like it's a possible triangle or something. But if you don't want that, then you wouldn't say something like that, because you're like inciting the fire, you know, you're poking at.
Yes, and I think that's exactly what we're identifying Greer. Not so that she is kind of being provocative, and she's saying, I could have if I wanted to. And she said, you know, I just told you to take some time, and, you know, then what was the assertion? What was the assertion if time
was? She said the only reason you're with her is because I told you when we're older. So time became a factor there in terms of that's the only reason. because we're just, you know, she wasn't ready for whatever reason. But then, like, was she just putting him off? But then she's still using it as ammo. And she's using that to hit the girl. That has nothing to do with him or her. It has to do with how do I hurt Flowers.
Yes, exactly.
How do I hurt the girl?
Yes. So here we go. So this idea that girls are sneaky, is it logical or emotional? I mean, I'm saying it's an emotional response. You know, for it to be truly logical, and I'm revealing my questions and answers, you'd need to, what would you test that girls are in fact by majority sneaky? And, you know, that's a ridiculous assertion, I'm saying, for everyone's benefit, including my own in this room. All right, now, okay, so here's something else I wanted to look at. So we've worked out some of the things that were going on in terms of logic, and emotion, and where, you know, where things were happening. Jerry said, this was his suggestion, you cannot break up years of friendship. You have to decide if you want to put up with that. Is that a logical or an emotional statement? And is that a logical next step? What do people... Was he employing logic there? You have to decide if you want to put up with that.
Is it logic based on emotions? So knowing that you've been friends with this person for years, it will be hard for you because you've developed some kind of connection with this person. It will be hard for you to just break up the friendship. So is it logic?
Well, yes, I'm asserting that there is a logical process that you can use in evaluating emotional data. So Jerry said to the Flowers girl, you cannot, and you know, to be honest, that I suppose is debatable anyway, but you have to decide if you want to put up with that. So he's setting up this binary: either you decide, or you leave. So you either leave or you stay. That's what he's saying. So I'm saying if it was logical, then, you know, the reason he's saying that, he's saying if the boy wants peace, he must choose. If girl wants peace, she must choose. So it's all about choosing. He's setting up, or you choose to stay. And I'm saying that this is not actually the case. What else could happen as a result between the three of them?
It could be better communication and understanding that would lead to them not thinking that, you know, they have to break up as friends, all of them, I mean, on the whole. And if we truly accept the fact that there's just friends, if that's what it is, because we don't, you know, they would just, you know, decide.
But I don't feel like they're just friends.
Exactly, I understand what you mean.
I feel like he was just waiting on her. In the meantime, Flowers was just there to fill his void. Really? And I can see, I'm taking Flowers' side because I can see where she's coming from. It's like, I think she sensed something, because I don't know, it's just weird. And if you have a girlfriend, you will want to do things to make your girlfriend happy, and you wouldn't choose above her.
So you're really making it... Yeah, go on.
Okay, I feel like I don't care for any of the three of them, but I think that the guy, he has, like, let's say he says, like, okay, he loves both of them, so he has like 2 boxes that are 1 and 1, and Flowers, like, she doesn't really have a say, because there's no choice. Like, the only choice she has is to, like, stop being friends with her friend, her best friend. She says that's not happening. Sorry, not Flowers, that's a girl in blue. But then Flowers, in like her 2 boxes, she has 1, which is the boy. Like, if she decides, like, she can stay with the guy and accept that he's going to be friends with the other girl, or she can leave and get one of the other 3-point-something billion other men who can have a different opinion to the guy she's with.
Right. Yeah.
Flowers should get a male best friend and see if he liked it.
No, I don't think it's about that. I think, like, also, you're 19. Like, how serious?
Yes. I don't believe their ages though. That's crazy.
Yeah, they look. But
really?
I mean, it's the US, but it's also TV. It's TV.
Yeah, it's lots of things, and I think also kind of a setup. Obviously these arguments are set up around a binary, and as we're seeing, obviously there are many more options. Okay, so just to summarize, if I can. Some of the other options are that having aired their, well, actually I put them on another secret and they popped up. So what are the other outcomes that could resolve this matter? That they've actually aired their fears, and, the girl in blue realizes she is being provocative and needs to clearly indicate she's no longer interested. The boy also said, that's not going to happen. When she said, oh, it could happen and it could have happened if I want it to, and it's just time. He said to his girlfriend, well, that's not going to happen. He was indicating that, to his credit, even though Greer didn't particularly like what he was doing. He did say it's not possible. So we all identify that she's actually being a bit provocative, and if she cares for him, as somebody else said, she wants him to have a girlfriend, she won't intentionally suggest she could have him and just kind of poke the bear. So what am I saying? That I'm saying, actually, of course, it's quite possible that Eric and the girl in blue suddenly decide, you know what, we do actually want to be together. It wouldn't be, I mean, we couldn't say that based on logic, because they've proven up to now that they aren't going to be together, and they've said that. But something could make him think, you know what, she's willing to stand up for me, she motivates me, this girl is talking about babies, I'm not ready for babies at 19, therefore, you know what, I am going to go with her. It would be completely illogical, but also it wouldn't be irrational, I'm saying. What do other people think?
I feel like I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yes. So I think, even though it's an illogical decision, it's also not irrational for them to decide, you know what, this sheds new light on our relationship. Let's try and make a go of it. And therefore, I'm saying, unlike what the first two videos showed us, there is actually a way of taking the emotional data and considering it in a logical way, and using it as evidence for possibilities. So I think I went a very long way round of trying to construct a proof, but also I do like Jerry Springer sometimes, so that's my bad. All right, so this slide is really just saying what I just summarized, that emotions are not irrational. That's my feeling, and I think many people would agree with that. And emotions can actually be informational. So not gut instinct, which I suppose is informational in one way, but kind of driven, but you kind of evaluate your emotions and use them as information. I don't know if Greer has anything to say about that and her experiences of that.
Yeah, and I think that, what I'm thinking about is how that looks to each person obviously is going to change based on your ability to control your emotions. How much that emotion influences the rationale would change for each person. So I suppose that's when we start to talk about, oh, she's really emotional, boy. But so are you, so is everyone else. So it's just, how do we allow those emotions to show, or, how loud those emotions are in our decision making, in our everyday behavior, I suppose.
Yes. So we can, as we really said at the beginning, we can see that emotions could be negative, emotions could be positive on our decision-making process. How much do we allow them into the foreground? Right. And, how do we evaluate their usefulness? So I actually think we are fully aware of this point, that emotions can be informational, but sometimes that point, I think, gets clouded out by the idea of the points of view around emotion and decision-making from the first two videos, either gut instinct or irrational. And I'm saying there's a third way. Not me alone, probably lots of other people, but I was just trying to prove it through that process. So I hope we got there. All right, so we have another half hour of us talking, and then we have some tutorial exercise. So I just want to go through a couple of other things. So let's move on now to looking at this concept of emotional labor. Who knows what this is? Has anyone come across this? I know you can see it on the slide, but has anyone come across it? This idea of emotional labor. Is that something you would have come across, Greer? Yeah, you've worked with that concept.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Okay. For me, it's relatively new. I hadn't really thought about it. I suppose I heard about it about 6 months ago, and then it just kept occurring. Let me see. Okay, so it was a term coined in 1983 by Arlie Hochschild. Sounds German, could be. So let's have a quick look at this video. I want us to go from 5 minutes, 20 seconds, 7 minutes, 20 seconds. And that, in that point, he talks about emotional labor. But he does actually, there's a little bit before that where he talks about gender and emotion. And since it came up, I think we should do that. So let me just get to that video. So stop sharing and bring up my next video and move it along a bit. I watched this video about like 5 times last night, trying to work out which bits to show. So let's just go from, okay. Hope it's the right thing. All right, so I'm just going to bring this video in. And let's have a look at a couple of points from this. So it's emotional labor that I'm really interested in, but he does talk about gender and emotion just a little bit before, so I want to just allow that to play as well.
Once the stock market does better on sunnier days. That's crazy. And if you think that people are rational, just that one idea alone should let you understand that no, we're not really as rational as we think we are. Stress obviously has an effect. Social activities, if you have strong connections with others, that will have an effect positively if you have those connections, negatively if you don't. Exercise will improve mood. Sleep, if you get poor sleep, or if you've just had a baby and you're not sleeping through the night, that's going to have a negative impact on your mood. Older people tend to feel fewer negative emotions. They tend to have things, and they're more placid. And then gender differences, women tend to feel emotions more intensely. That's not me writing that, that's research that Robinson and Judge put into the text, but there is something to that. Women do tend to feel things more intensely, emotions last longer, and they express emotions far more frequently than men do. In general, not all, but in general. Now, there's this interesting concept called emotional labor. Emotional labor is an employee trying to express the right emotions because they're at work and they, where they otherwise might not express those emotions, this is, something that is required. So I think, for example, of a stewardess who, while she's being buffeted by rude people on the plane, she has to keep this smile on. And what would you like? Would you like this? And it's a very difficult thing. So emotional labor leads to emotional dissonance when employees have to project this one emotion while simultaneously feeling, I want to strangle these people on this plane, right? If they're thinking that, they can't project it because they won't last very long. But that can actually lead to burnout, and there are studies that show that. So types of emotions felt are things like felt, which is I want to strangle them, and then there's displayed, which is hi, would you like Coke or Pepsi or Sprite or whatever, right? So there's a difference between felt and displayed. Now, felt is, again, what you feel. Displayed is what you're trying to demonstrate in spite of what you feel. So surface level is just trying to hide this. Hi, would you like this soda? And then there's deep acting. So surface acting is more like the stewardess, and deep acting is actually trying to modify your true feelings. Actors do this when they get into a kind of acting where they're trying to really embody and feel the feelings that person would have thought. And so, you see movie actors and actresses that get emotionally involved while they're in a film, and then they break up. Shortly thereafter the film, they fall out of love, and you're going, well, what happened? Well, they were involved in that deep level acting so much that they're kind of tricking themselves into this. Okay, so my question here is, do you experience emotional labor?
Okay, so he's asking some of the same questions I want to ask you, but in a different way. Let me come back to my slides. Share screen, back to slides. Okay, so that was quite interesting. Let me ask you, anyone in the room, what's your summary then for emotional labor? What are we saying it is?
This is where I can relate it to people who work and people who don't work. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Sure, let's hear.
But it's a situation where you feel a certain way, but you are showing a different emotion.
Yeah.
From how you're actually feeling.
Yes, exactly.
And I can relate to that, but I mean, not work-wise, but like in secondary school, I hated a teacher, hated her, and
Right.
she hated me too. But because I knew she was correcting my SBAs, I was always polite and respectful, so I can still, you know, get a good mark.
Sure.
Even though I wanted to strangle her, I would always tell her good morning and yes, miss, and you know. Yeah. So I guess that can work as well.
Right. Yeah. So we can see how you positively employed it, Rochelle, to overcome a certain situation. Yeah. So this idea that we have to put on a face in all kinds of situations. I mean, it's not just work, is it? It's everyday life, I think. I don't know, all kinds of things, all kinds of situations. You know, people do things to you when you're in the grocery or cut in front of you. They do certain things and you just kind of have to let it weather sometimes, because what are you going to do? Get into a row every time someone pushes in front or is rude as you perceive it. So it's putting on a front or putting on a face. It's what the definition, I think, let me come to the definition here. It's an expression. These are the words that the academics use around it. This idea of expression of organizationally desired emotions during interpersonal communications. And it can produce this idea of dissonance, so a difference between what you feel and what you display, and it can result in burnout. Oh, let me hide some of my notes here. All right, so what are the ways of overcoming emotional dissonance in the workplace? This is a really general question to all of you. And I contrasted two kinds of workplaces environments, and you'll tell me, Greer and others, if you think I'm right. This is with respect to emotion. So a workplace environment where there is this free expression of emotion and emotion is allowed, and another workplace environment where things are much more kind of rational and procedural, and you're not meant to allow emotion into the equation. And I've contrasted it. I've said in one case, the rational procedural one is more like military, police, the things where everything has to be kind of evidential. And the other type, I think, where emotions are freely allowed, you can either get, you know, this problem with toxicity, if it's too much negative emotion, and if it's positive emotion, then I guess you get a creative kind of environment. But I'm really just asking the room, you know, your own experiences of emotion and how to prevent that dissonance, how to prevent that distance. How did you cope with it, Rochelle, in the workplace or everyday life? I mean, you said you put up with it with a teacher, but are there any other ways that you kind of justified it in your mind so that it didn't feel like you're constantly having to, you know, bite your tongue?
It was very hard for me. And I had to suck it up until the end of the school term.
Was there never any time where you felt you were able to, you know, put aside the fact that she was being miserable and you didn't like each other? Did you ever try to explore what the basis of your dislike for each other was?
No.
Maybe not
no,
then.
She just used to pick on me, and and we didn't really come to any kind of solution. Just during our parent-teacher meeting, it just went. It wasn't
bad.
good.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So you had a parent or guardian who fiercely defended you,
Yes, my mom, because she was literally attacking me during the meeting, and my mom was like, hold up, hold up, hold up. And then there was another teacher there with us, and she was like, because the teacher acted like if there was nothing, no tension between us. She pretended like there was nothing. And even my next teacher who was there with us said, well, no, the whole class and myself realized there's something between you and Rochelle going on. So there was no kind of solution.
Yeah, that sounds like a tough one. All right, as someone looking into, okay, yes, hi Bowen. I see Bowen.
Hi, Dr. Shepherd, morning.
Hi there, morning.
Yeah, I would have had an experience with this emotional labor a few years ago, right? There's this one officer that was being senior to me, and I had to work with her for probably about a year and a half, right? And basically, to use our local term, she was on my case, right? And you know, with the military laws, there's not much you can do as an individual in terms besides make a file a report, and then the report has to go to her because she's my immediate senior. So any report I file has to pass to her, and then she sends it upwards. So if she decides she's not going to send it, and it goes into drawer 99, it stays in drawer 99, and basically that's what happened. But I had to work with the close quarters because we were assigned to the same vessel for a while. Actually, she brought me from on a base to work on the vessel with her, to have me right there with her, right? And basically it would have been difficult because I had to manage my emotions. I couldn't let her see, you know, that I am having this. No, she knew that I had trouble with her, but you know, in terms of my physical emotions on my face, you know, I had to manage it, to not let her know, you know, that hey, Nelson has a major problem. Nelson is being insubordinate towards her. So
yeah. Not asking you your personal business, Bowen. In other words, I'm not asking you what the basis of that was, but how in that kind of procedural environment, what I perceive to be highly procedural environment, did you try and get, what are the different ways that you tried to get over the, you know, how you acted and how you felt? How did you kind of bridge those two? Was there any way in which you were able to do that? So Rochelle, in her example, said there was never any kind of let up. Did you have any in yours?
That would have been a low point in my career, in the sense that at that point, I was ready to turn the towel, I was ready to leave. I went over her head, and I went to the executive officer. I spoke to him informally. I went to the person who is in charge of our discipline. He's our regulating officer. I spoke to him informally as well. And I went to the to our welfare, and basically I had some counseling sessions because honestly it was stressful. So I did have some counseling sessions, and eventually I was transferred from under her command.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That sounds very tough, and you know, thank you for sharing that. I myself have had, you know, some workplace and I mean life situations where I ended up speaking to a counsellor because I wanted some way of better understanding the emotions that were rising and understanding my ideas, understanding my thoughts, and for me at least, it really did help kind of clarify why certain things come up and why I feel certain ways. So. Yes, sorry, Bowen, you were going to say?
No, that's it. I'm okay.
Yeah, okay. So we've spoken about impact, and we can be clear about the impact. So neither of you then in these circumstances found ways of overcoming the dissonance, which is dissonance being the justification that we use. In other words, a kind of rationalization. Neither of you were able to do that in these situations at that time. Do you think looking back, you can rationalize it now as you've stood away from that situation?
No, because I didn't know what caused it.
Yeah. But I mean, did you try to imagine what may have caused it?
Well, in Form 3, she taught me geography and I loved her. She was one of my favorite teachers and I was one of her favorite students. But at that time, she was engaged. But in Form 4, we realized she was not engaged and she was mean and picked on me. So the class and everybody else said, maybe the other woman looked like me.
Oh, wow.
So
Really?
yeah, but that was our only scenario we could come up with.
Okay.
Oh, only reason she could have been so mean to me.
Yeah.
Because other teachers loved me, honestly.
Sounds like it was a terrible situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, what about Greer? What do you have to say on this topic of what are the ways of overcoming that need to justify to ourselves, you know, that we're doing? What are the ways of rationalizing it then?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm really happy that, you know, counseling came into it and more organization that was part of the conversation, because unfortunately in Trinidad there's still a stigma attached to that, and it's getting better. But in today's world, I mean, first of all, psychiatrists go to psychiatrists, counselors go to counselors. So we sure as hell should be at some point in our lives. And if we haven't yet already been to a counselor for some reason, know that you need it at some point in your life. But so that's really important in overcoming. I think having that third party, that outside person, assess the situation and maybe call you out on what you're thinking, how you're thinking through the scenario, how you're thinking through the situation, call you out on it or help you process it better than you would on your own. And then I think that awareness of what is actually happening and what part I might have to play in the process. I'm not saying that my part to play in the story is wrong or that I did anything wrong, but perhaps I could have done something better or differently. So that next time, you know, it's, you know, a lighter process or whatever it may be. One of the first examples that comes to mind when I think about how I'm actually acting, but what I'm actually thinking is dealing with customers. And, you know, the customer is correct. The customer is always right. That doesn't hold as much water and validity as it once did, but it still is the act as if the customer is always right, even though you know without a doubt the customer is wrong. Your superiors know the customer is wrong. Everyone around you, the customers sometimes know that they're wrong, but they also know that they're going to be treated as if they're right.
Greer, just one point. In terms of organization, is that ultimately, based on the idea that, you know, the money is the bottom line and therefore you always want the sale? I mean, that must be, that's probably where it comes from, that, I imagine.
You always want the sale. However, we have kind of, not across the board, but we're kind of moving into, I want your sale. However, if you don't fit my customer profile, and or if I cannot please you, and that is clear as an organization, I cannot please you as a customer, then perhaps you need to go elsewhere. And perhaps we're both going to be better off that way. So we're kind of moving into that era, dare I say. So the customer is still right. The customer is still right. But perhaps I'm not able to fulfill your needs and wants as a customer. That's new. That conversation is new. Right. And dare I say a bit more authentic, because it costs a lot to please a customer that refuses to be satisfied.
Yes.
So let them go somewhere else and let them know that it's okay if they go somewhere else. So you start to see a lot of collaborations, and you start to see a lot of, I'm supporting, you know, other businesses, and I'm collaborating with other businesses. It's okay if the customer shops around, because at the end of the day, I've differentiated my brand so that if the customer sticks, they belong with me. And I'm solid with that. Yeah. So, but the customer is still and will always be right, even though in my head they're wrong and I don't even want them to be my customer anymore. But I'm gonna work through it and keep my A game on.
So I've heard you, Greer, talk about other kinds of professional relationship in which that idea can actually be a negative, can't it? Where you have to say that the customer's always right. I was thinking about the time that you spoke about having to deal with celebrities or kind of VIP clients, and you always have to please them, even if you know they're being completely miserable. And I was actually thinking about the kinds of relationship we heard between like a manager, I've heard at least, about a manager and then certain kinds of celebrity, where celebrities like, you know, no one corrected Michael Jackson in certain kinds of behavior. Let's not use him. Any other celebrity, I don't want to get into that. But, you know, managers don't correct people, for example, who are paying them, and this is a conflict of the relationship, and therefore they go down very bad roads without any kind of, you know, correction. I can't think of a better word for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I worked at Whole Foods Market, Naomi Klein would come all the time. She was horrible. The staff would literally run. Like the staff would not want to cash out her groceries. Like they would.
Do you mean Naomi Campbell?
Campbell. Not Klein, sorry. Naomi Campbell. So the model. So I would have never known that she was such a horrible person. But it was like disappear. And she would always come, obviously, the celebrities would come early in the morning or just before we close. So there was not a lot of people in the store. So it was just staff and a minimum, we're on skeleton staff on early mornings and late evening shifts. So all of a sudden the cashier assigned, I know I have cashiers assigned to certain tills and they're gone. They just disappeared because they see her coming in, they time her shopping, they have like a system where the security guard is like, she's coming upstairs, and they tell the cashiers and they're gone. They don't want to deal with her.
Right.
But of course now because I'm the silly supervisor on duty, have to go and be so pleasant and kind to this witch.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I mean, I think the other aspect of that is part of this process. I think that you're saying about, you know, you kind of I wrote down transform. You know, like a psychologist or a counselor might help you transform what you're going through by calling out your responsibilities or calling out the way you're not helping the situation, but also support you in coping. The point about the Naomi Campbell thing is you also maybe sometimes have to, unfortunately, and I don't like the term, but grow a thick skin. You know, you kind of have to just weather it and think, you know what, this woman is nasty. She's terrible to everyone.
Yeah.
It's not going to impact my life. It, you know, obviously it does because you're having to say that, but that is a transformational process, I think, where you say, you know what, I'm not putting up with it.
Yeah.
It's not going deep.
I was still, you know, bitching after she left the store. I was still unhappy about it. I'm still unhappy about it, but I was better at facing her. And she was not the only one. There was other customers that weren't celebrities that you see them come in the store and you run and hide. But I also, more than anything, instinct kicked in to protect my staff. So I would jump in the line of fire, as I've said before, and I was happy to take it. And I did not take it personally. How could I? She doesn't know me. She doesn't know anything about me. Whatever her issues are, I'm sorry that you're having those issues, but I could take it. The staff were not, some of them were better than others. So depending on who was on duty, they would jump in the line of fire as well. But I'm not going to ask them to deal with that. They're not getting paid near enough. Neither am I. But still, they're not getting paid to deal with, to be abused. They're not getting paid to be abused.
Yeah.
So, I was able to do with it. But it was one of my favorite things to do, actually, is to deal with difficult customers, because I was able to not take it personally. And I have, in my head, I'm smiling. In my head, I'm smiling. And in my head, I'm playing a game. And in my head, how can I come out on top of this ugly, horrible customer? When I know I have security having my back, I just have to, you know, turn my head and they will escort you out. I had a good relationship with my boss. So that made an environment where it was easier for me to put on a face, even though I was fuming, well, smiling / angry about it afterwards.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right. So that, I mean, that I think is this classic example of the dissonance. You know, you smile and you're fuming inside, but the transformational process is to say, you know what, I'm going to let it go over my head or wash off my back, because she doesn't know me. She's just sadly got something going on and is taking it out. It's wrong, but it's not going into my life.
I have a story. This is the one that I took personally. On the phone, he just berated another another staff member, a fellow supervisor who was from Italy, and he told her something about Italians. He called back and she transferred the call to me, and he was going on, and I had that conversation with the customer where I said, well, perhaps, sir, obviously we cannot please you, because he was going on and on, berating, like it had nothing to do with anything with it. And I recognized that. So I said, sir, since we cannot help you, perhaps you should go somewhere else. And that blew him. He turned into Jekyll or Hyde, or whichever one is the bad one. And he said to me, you have a typical Caribbean attitude, laid back and useless, and hung up the phone.
Wow.
That one I took personally. But yeah, that was the only one I took personally.
Yeah, I think sometimes these things do cut deep, and the fact that you can recount that story with such precision after so many years shows that, there's something that stayed with you. So we all have things that we, myself included, kind of need to learn to let go of. And sometimes it happens with age, sometimes with experience. Sometimes I suppose we have to go through a process where somebody points it out to us. I'm constantly working on those things. So yeah, good conversation. I would like to wrap up the chatting part with one more one more video, and then I'm going to give you guys an exercise, because I feel like you haven't said something in a while. And that is to just show you something really quickly on emotional intelligence, just to round off all of the things that we're saying about emotion and decision making, and emotion and us as individuals, and the workplace included. All right, so let me stop here and bring up my videos again. This is the very last video, and this is Daniel Goleman, who is, it's a video with Daniel Goleman. He is one of the key names associated with emotional intelligence. He didn't come up with it, but he kind of popularized it. And he talks through emotion and gender. He talks through emotion and what it means to be intelligent emotionally. So let's just have a quick look at this.
Emotional intelligence refers to how well we handle ourselves and our relationships. The 4 domains: self-awareness, knowing what we're feeling, why we're feeling it, which is a basis of, for example, good intuition, decision-making. Also, it's a moral compass. Second part is self-management, which means handling your distressing emotions in an effective way so that they don't cripple you, they don't get in the way of what you're doing, and yet attuning them to them when you need to, so that you can learn by trust. Every emotion has a function. Also, marshaling positive emotions, getting ourselves...
Excuse me, Sylvie, aren't hearing anything. It's too low.
About what we're doing.
Sorry, is that better? I've got it up on full here. I now turned it up. You'll tell me if it's still not loud enough. Let's try this.
Aligning our actions with our passions.
It's still low.
Too low? What should I do, Grace? Shall I put it in?
No, come out and then go back in. But before you, when you click share screen, there's that. Yeah. Come.
Can I?
When you click share.
Can I put it in the chat, and maybe you have control over it, because I think you might understand this better.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. Yeah. Sure. Hold on.
So essentially what Daniel Goleman is going to do, he's going to go through what emotional intelligence is and then talk about a couple of applications as they relate to us as individuals. And I just want to talk really quickly about the organizational component. So if you, as we listen to Daniel Goleman talking, he talks about emotional intelligence in three particular areas, three kind of layers. I'd like to see if you kind of capture that in this one video.
Learn these skills, they also learn basic learning skills. I think that the fact that that was an argument was one thing that caught people's attention. Then there was a little chapter on called Managing with Heart, which argued that leaders who were sons of a bitch were actually defeating the company's own mission. And I think that made a lot of people happy because they work for people like that. I don't know, some people gave it to other people because they thought they needed help in this domain. I'm sure there's a zillion reasons why people like the book. I know IQ has been going up for 100 years as children encounter a more sophisticated cognitive environment as they grow. I don't know that we're becoming more emotionally intelligent. I like to hope we would, but I think that the number of intergroup wars going on, the intergroup hatred going on, the levels of familial abuse, in other words, indicators of emotions out of control in dangerous ways, don't look that great, which is why I'm a very strong proponent of getting these social emotional learning programs in every school worldwide. You have to remember that emotional intelligence is a range of abilities: self-awareness, emotional self-management, empathy, social skills. Women tend to be better than men on average at empathy, particularly emotional empathy, sensing in the moment how the other person is feeling, and also at social skills, at keeping things feeling good between people and at a group. Men, on the other hand, tend to be better on average at self-confidence, particularly in groups, and at managing distressing emotions. But what's very interesting is if you look at leaders who are in the top 10%, there's no difference between the men and the women on any of those variables. In other words, you have a whole human being. So I would say that on average, there probably are differences, men and women, in this domain of ability. But as people develop their skills, as people become more effective, they pick up strengths in areas that they need. I think that emotional intelligence is a universal, but it looks different in different places. Japan has a very rigid set of rules of social interaction, lots of subtleties. Americans typically blunder into the Japanese system, don't get what's going on, and it's embarrassing, but they wouldn't recognize necessarily emotional intelligence in Japanese setting. Brazil is a very different culture. It's very outgoing, kind of like an Italian culture, and so it would look different there. But I think the fundamentals are the same.
Great. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I think I can now come back to the slides. Let me do that. Okay. So that was quite interesting. I think maybe as we moved along, we lost the beginning of the video a little bit. Can anyone summarize for me what they got as the three layers of emotional intelligence, the three kind of key areas? Did anyone capture that? Or maybe you know it already? somebody's mic came on, I think. Who's one of our talkers today? One of our spokesmen, spokeswomen. Rochelle, what do you understand about emotional intelligence? What did you get from that video?
So, well, I kind of missed part of the video because my sisters were talking in the background.
Oh, okay.
But sorry, but emotional intelligence. I think from previous courses that I did, I think that has to do with putting your emotions aside in order to deal with a particular situation.
Yes, sure. Do you have any sense of the layers in which we're looking at emotion? Because I think there are three clear layers when we talk about emotional intelligence, what we're really talking about.
No, so I don't really have anything to say.
Okay.
Sorry, I was distracted. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. All right, so let me show you this this slide, guys. So what I gather from it, and I've been dabbling with this concept for some years. I taught it to medical students as well when we were talking about doctor-patient interaction. So I've applied it to different situations, but I understand it to be perceiving emotions of oneself and others. So having a sense of what someone may be feeling. Then understanding the meanings of emotions and conveying them. So things like empathy. So, you know, displaying it and reacting to it, and then regulating. The third layer is regulating one's own emotions. So not letting emotions get out of control. That's what I got. So a really quick question to you. Oh no, this might be a long question. Okay, it's a Trinidad and Tobago question. What are some of your observations of the particulars of emotional life in TNT in terms of criticism, empathy, and judgment? Let's just pick one of those. Let's talk about the first one, coping with criticism and giving criticism. What have been your experiences generally in the room of the way you cope with criticism and the way criticism is given as a means of, well, whatever the reason for that criticism is? Anyone have any experiences of it?
Well, my sisters tell me I cannot take constructive criticism. I get angry.
Oh, really?
I disagree with them.
Okay. Tell me what that's about though, Rochelle. Is it that she's, I mean, is that a genuine point? Does she feel like you don't take it well because you think you're right and therefore can't accept that someone is, you know, suggesting another way?
They all say it. It's more than one sister I have. Yeah, okay. So they all say I can't take it. I don't know why. I don't agree with them. And so I fight them down when they tell me that.
Okay.
Rochelle, it's funny how you don't agree with the constructive criticism that they tell you.
Yes. Rochelle, do you get the irony in that someone's criticized or offering you a critique and you don't agree with the basis of even being critiqued? Is it that you're saying that you, like, on what basis do you think that they're all being wrong?
I don't know. So for example, in my spare time, I write scripts, movie scripts. Because that's what I'm into. And like my sister will give me corrections and I just don't agree with her corrections. I'm like, no, this is how it is and I'm right and I think this is better. And she's like, you can't take constructive criticism. I said, yes, I can.
Well, you know what? I'm kind of with you on that one, Rochelle, because I think in creative projects, I have this issue too. I will give my short stories and creative writing to people and I'll ask for advice. And, you know, you kind of have to be careful who to get advice from with these things, because sometimes people, well-intentioned, kind of hamper your creative process and actually, you know, it's not the right thing to do if you pursue it. Other times they can be dispassionate and observe it from the outside and there's someone who can tell you, you know, this character isn't working because we're not interested in their motivation or whatever it might be, you know. So maybe maybe you feel their criticism isn't warranted because you have a very clear idea of what you want to come out of the story. Could it be that?
Exactly. And I think that's the same thing with a lot of Trinidadians. I think it's the same thing.
Tell me more. What do you mean?
They are easily offended if you decide to give them some kind of correction or pull them up on something.
Okay. So are you easily offended then? Is that what you're saying about yourself?
I would say so. Yes,
really?
I agree.
Oh, okay. So then when I said that your script, you know, was about your artistic vision, you're saying it's not just about that maybe you are a bit precious about it.
I'm easily offended when they do it because I feel like it comes from a different place. It's just trying to be annoying. But if it's like a professor or people on the outside, I'm cool. I take the criticism and I'm cool with it. But I feel because it's from them, it hits differently.
Right, got you. Yeah, I think that's true. All right, let's thank you, Rochelle. Khadija, you had a point?
Yeah, I think, you know, as trees in general, like a lot of us we're very emotional people, and sometimes when we receive criticism, we like to take it personally. So if you, again, like in her writing, she probably sees, you know, her sisters as coming at her, like she says, from a place that's not constructive, I guess. So she's probably saying like, okay, they're probably, this is an insult to my intelligence and not because they genuinely think that the work needs improvement.
Right.
So yes. I think that's something that we could work on. We take things too personally, like it's not really that deep sometimes.
Right. So maybe we need to be able to separate out a kind of personal relationship from the content that's being said. And we think that, you know, if it's family, they're not the right person to advise us, which is why we go to see an external person, a counselor maybe. Sometimes two people can say the same thing. Family can say the same thing. A counselor can say the same thing, or take it from the counselor and not from family. They were right. They weren't, or at least the two people were in agreement, but we didn't like it from one and we accept it from the other. I get accused of doing that all the time because I listen to this spiritual guru on the internet, and someone will tell me something and I'll say, oh, you know, this guy says, and they said, well, I told you that months ago and you've just been going down this road. And I said, well, I needed to hear it from someone else. It's a very annoying habit, but I know I have it. All right, let me ask you this last question to the room, including Greer. How good are we about giving criticism? How good are we?
I wanted to just mention here, because this kind of answers the question, and this is also what I was thinking. But Melissa said, I think Trinidadians in general love to give criticism. I agree with that wholeheartedly. We love to criticize others, but we have a huge problem with being criticized. People are always quick to criticize another family or individual, but when someone talks about their family or individual, they immediately become defensive. And if we're talking about, you know, dissonance or where does that come from, that not wanting to be criticized, I think it really does come from a defensive. We immediately are defensive as Trinidadians, I think. And so because we're defensive, we don't like to be criticized.
Can I ask you something? Greer, can I ask something? Maybe you, I don't know if you share Melissa's point, but is Melissa saying that there is no criticism then that is well-intentioned, even though it's said wrong or said in a way that's antagonistic, but actually, you know, the person means well? Do you feel that is a TNT quality?
I agree with Melissa's basic general point here, but to answer that question, I think that it depends on the context of the situation, because if you are in a position, in a frame of mind emotionally, I want to improve, I want to get better, then that criticism, when it comes to you, however shape, form, or fashion, kindness or harshness it comes to you, you listen to it. It's louder because you want it. You've signed up for it. You're looking for it. You're asking for it. You're eager for it. You're excited for it even sometimes. But if you didn't solicit it,
yeah,
want it, expect it, and someone offers it, and it could be genuine or authentic or not. If you didn't solicit it, you're defensive. Why are you even criticizing me in the first place? And therefore, I haven't even heard the criticism. If I listen to the criticism, it might help, but I haven't even heard the criticism because I'm like, why are you on my case?
So maybe the TNT thing is not that we, I'm including myself in this, like to criticize or be judgmental, but that nobody asked for it, but we have a tendency to want to give it. Out of well-meaning or typically not well-meaning, would you say, Greer?
Oh, that is the question. That I do not have the answer for that. I suppose we would like it to be well-meaning, and I would like to say it depends on the person, but it depends on the person, the place, the time, the context, of course. But I think that from that very same person, you can get criticism that is well-meaning, and the very next day get criticism that is not from that very same person.
Yeah,
who knows? Especially in a work situation. I think that in an organization, in a group, that unsolicited criticism could be very well-intentioned, but something can flip the switch so easily, like a breakup or a engagement is no longer on the table all of a sudden, and next thing you know, it's no longer intention, and you don't even know what you did.
Yeah.
So you did something, it has something to do with you, but you just don't even know what you did, and all of a sudden it's no longer well-intentioned. So Trini.
I think just to kind of round off this discussion, the emotional lives that we lead are, super complicated. And, I think it's all, for me at least, it's a kind of lifelong journey to understand what I'm thinking, where it's coming from, when it's of value, when giving advice is of value and not, and, super complicated. And I guess the workplace environment and, the culture of the space, all of those things kind of layered on top of each other make it even more difficult to unpack, which is why as communication students, I think we're, perfectly placed to try and analyze some of these things and think about them in their very specific areas. And hopefully you get to do that in your strategic communication assignment. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I would say about that.
I think Khadija had something to say before.
Yeah.
I don't know if we answered it. I know she had her hand up, but then she put it down. So I'm not sure if she changed her mind, but I just wanted to make sure she wasn't skipped over or not. But I think she's fine, I guess. She'll jump in when you want, Khadija.
Yes. All right. So let's if Khadija has a point, you can obviously bring it to us. All right. So I want us to now do a really short investigation. So Greer, how many people are with us in the room?
So we have 22.
So if we had 4 groups, we could have 2 of 6 and 2 of 5.
Sure.
Is that too big? If we did 5 groups,
we'd have 4 or 5 people per group.
Yes, let's do it that way.
Less than that, yeah. Okay.
Can we do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me
okay. All right, everyone. I want to set you this task. So I'm going to share this story with you. This is a story. Okay, let me see if I can copy this. I'm going to put it in the chat. How do I find the chat now? Why am I not seeing it? Stop sharing. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share this story with you. No? Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Sharing this story. This is essentially a story going on, it's current and it's going on at Oxford University. On the surface, it may be a little bit boring, but essentially it's about a dean of a college, and there's a dispute in the college, and he stepped aside while they evaluate that dispute. One group of people say, it's about money. Another group of people say it's warranted. And the college brought in an independent assessor called Sir Andrew to actually kind of make an assessment. He cleared him, and then there's, you know, an ongoing, there's a new allegation of some problem. Okay, so essentially what I want us to do, what I want us to do, sorry, is to create an emotional profile of this situation based on those three things that we've spoken about: decision-making, emotional decision-making, emotional intelligence, and emotional labor. And these are the, these are what I want you to think about. So you take the position of the independent tribunal, Sir Andrew Smith, and look at emotion and decision-making. You take the position of the college authorities and look at emotional intelligence. And you take the position of the Very Reverend Martin Percy, that's his full title, and look at emotional labor. Now, I think I have a habit of making exercises very complicated, and I really did try today to pare it down. So this is essentially what I want you to do. I want you to, with each of those three groups, sorry, I'm going to cut and paste this so you can come up with this. This is essentially what I want you to do. Come up with, stop sharing. So in each of those three, with each of those three parties, Martin, the assessor, and the college itself, identify the principal imbalance that they're having to consider and come up with three questions for each of those people that can be asked by them and of them to answer these particular points 1, 2, and 3. And that's the exercise. And I want to give you 20 minutes and have you come back. Greer, I don't know if you can tell me, am I making, yes. Am I making sense? Sorry. Does this seem clear?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm second guessing myself sometimes that I've like made it really complicated and I'm jabbering away and people aren't getting what I'm going on about. What, am I clear? Does it seem clear?
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
After I said, I mean, I haven't read the article yet, but I assume that once they've read the article, it would make even more sense. But they seem like so far straightforward questions to me.
Okay, good.
I'm gonna do 4 rooms.
Yes.
And you, because your co-host might get put into a room, but you can just come out. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's gonna happen there.
Right. Oh, there's one other thing I want to do. I did an emotional intelligence quiz and I want you all to try it. You included Greer actually, because I got a really bad number, I think. I'll tell you my number afterwards, and I want to see if anyone got a higher number than me. I suspect many of you will do. So this emotional...
I'm not good at quizzes.
Well,
I don't ever do good. But I really want to do this though. I really want to do this.
So this is a really short emotional intelligence quiz. It gives you some ideas of how to assess emotional intelligence, and it gives you a number at the end. And I'm really keen to hear what people's numbers are. All right. So it's now 12:20 by my clock. We can come back at 12:40. So 20 minutes the students have, and do the emotional intelligence quiz and come up with some questions for each of those three parties to get into the problems.
Okay.
So we could probably stop recording, Greer, and start back when everyone comes back. Sure.
I think there's a way for me to send stuff to them, so just have to remember that. Like, because I created your room, I could send stuff to the room. If we
Got you. All right, so just really to start off, for those who did get to do the quiz, did you do it, Greer?
Yes. So it said I had a good EQ, good emotional, I suppose, intelligence, but areas to work on. I have to take time out of my busy day-to-day activities to stop and reflect on what brings you greatest meaning, which to me translates into what brings you joy. And if I don't fail to do that on a regular basis, I risk becoming tranquilized by the trivial, which makes so much sense. It really makes sense.
Right.
You know, if you're not, you know, we talk about mental health and wellness, but it's true. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else.
Yeah.
You know. So
let me reveal. I'll reveal that my number was 43.
I didn't get a number.
Oh.
I didn't get. I'm not seeing a number.
You get sent a PDF of your results.
I didn't even look at that. I just looked at I didn't even look and see, okay, let me check my PDF then while you reveal yours.
Yeah. So my number was 43 and it said, I think it was, I mean, it seems like that's below average to me. I'm thinking that's not a great number. I think the issue is, for me, if I'm just remembering, because I did it a couple of times, and the second time I got slightly different questions actually, but anyway. The first time I got, you know, to refer to an 8% situation. Did you get that question, Greer? It said, what is your 8% situation? The next time it just asked me about a business and how many people in an organization, that kind of thing. So I think once you do it more than once, it generates slightly different questions. Anyway, I got 43.
Good to know.
And basically, I found out this is a tool that they use. I think there are some teachers from a particular school. I think it might be Harvard, and they use some of the materials from this instructional company to actually work on emotional intelligence and stuff like that. So I had to work on how I think not rushing to judgment, and also I know that sometimes I'm critical of myself, but I can. I wouldn't say I have a short temper, but I think I do rush to making a judgment sometimes, and I need to step back. And I always thought I was quite good at that, but according to this test,
that's the thing. It's particularly, you know, it's one thing to get this feedback, but it's another thing. So I thought I was really good at that. I thought I had that part down, but apparently not.
Yes.
I got my number.
What's your number?
It's 45.
Oh wow. Okay. I honestly thought that you would be significantly higher, different. Maybe we can just assess the room. Who got their numbers and who got a number way and above 40 something? Did anyone get their numbers?
I think they're probably doing it now. It doesn't take too long though.
Yeah.
I have to admit though, there were a couple there that I you know, you start off and then by the fifth one, you're like, all right, this is like the fifth one I've done a neutral answer to.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, is it gonna assess that neutral answer or omit that question altogether in my assessment? And am I not answering? We got a 43. And I'm not, am I not answering because I don't want to answer?
Yeah.
And why don't I want to answer? Like, I mean, I didn't have time, obviously, to process that, but
yeah. There are a couple of questions. Admittedly. A couple of questions where I deliberated a little bit. Am I more like this or less like that? And I guess people will recognize that most of all of those questions were on a Likert scale, except where you were asked to put a definite answer. So students, that's a good point to note if you're going to use that scale.
Yeah. Melissa said she got 43. Yeah. I don't know if she was expecting 43 or more. Khadija got 36.
Okay. What areas do you need to improve on, Khadija, according to this survey, which we can
36. Yeah.
Which we can say is maybe right or wrong if we're like Rochelle and not willing to accept the criticism.
Just let me get back to you. Let me check a read of what they were saying.
Okay.
Okay. And they send you the full score. I am curious of what you got, Rochelle.
I'm not seeing my number.
So you have to go to your email. It would have sent you a PDF. It doesn't show you the number right away on the site. Okay. So go to whatever email address you put in.
Yeah.
Ooh, Kristen got 56.
Wow, yeah. Okay.
What did it tell you to work on, Kristen?
Is it the website itself or the email? Because the email says 56 and then the website has like a thing. It's like I could go both ways.
Let me tell you something, Christian.
Okay.
I also had that issue. I looked at the website and I thought I understood my number. And then when I checked the email, it was lower than I thought. So I think it's the email that has the number.
The email is at 56.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the number.
Yeah.
What comes up on the website is a bit confusing to read. It's not completely clear in every.
That's what I was reading first. Then you told me to go to the
it's the
PDF,
email and it gives you a PDF of how you answered. So I thought that was quite interesting. So what areas as a 56 do you still need to work on, Christian, or what's it saying?
The website will tell you what to work on, not the email.
They said you are extremely high in emotional intelligence or extremely low. These results may reflect your high level of self-knowledge or lack of it, since you must be self-aware to assess yourself accurately. For this reason, self-awareness is the fundamental competency of emotional intelligence. You may want to seek clarification from a peer, co-worker, or family member to validate how you feel you respond emotionally when you're under pressure.
Right. So
I think I understand. Go ahead.
Well, the way I understood that, to understand it, is it's saying you actually have a good theoretical knowledge, but maybe you don't necessarily apply it. That's what I got from the first statement, at least. So you understand what you're supposed to do, but actually you may not feel it. So maybe it's this issue of the dissonance. You know, you project something, but actually internally you're not, you're not agreeing with what you project. What did you get?
I thought maybe not even aware of your emotional intelligence. So you've obviously answered these questions with some extremities that is like, are you even aware of this, or are you so sure of yourself that you know you have this down?
Right.
I answered it because like I knew like how I deal with situations.
Yeah.
Like I'm real like black or white.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So
That's
then
interesting.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
So then so that's why they said to ask your peers for an evaluation, to see if they think the same.
Those that know you.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Okay. You know what? Now I'm seeing the numbers in the room. I'm not feeling so bad. I see. Salif
Misery
got 40.
loves company.
Yes, I know. It's terrible, isn't it? Salif got 40 and Shadika got...
We're normal. I feel better too.
Shakida, got 36.
Yeah. I'm feeling like average. The average there is, I'm good.
I mean,
I think being average.
I think I'm a good listener, but actually I do think sometimes, it's not that I rush to judgment, I don't think, but I think I like to, say, well, I need more information. So I refuse to make a judgment in a lot of cases. Yeah.
So the website gives you the feedback on what to work on, Salif, but to get your score, you need to go to your email, to the email that they sent. To be fair, my family, if you were to ask them how emotionally intelligent Gray is, they'll say that I am crazy. Like my sister-in-law legit thinks I'm crazy in a good way, where we get along well. But she's like, I'm extreme. I'm extreme on every level. If I'm sad, I'm extreme. If I'm angry, I'm extreme. If I'm happy, I'm extreme. And I make no apologies about that extremity. I did come across a quote just recently. That one of those things where this was exactly when this quote was supposed to find me. It was actually something that someone said in a webinar, but they said, don't be afraid to be extreme, to be extremely effective. And that was like, there you go. Like, I'm going to just continue my extremities.
But you know what I think that says, Grit? I think that says that sometimes emotion, you are the perfect fit for it, but if you're not the right fit, then you're going to be very bad. So that's what I think that says.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And we don't necessarily recognize that. Great if we do, and when we do, but perhaps that's why we need that second opinion we need to get feedback from people around us sometimes and listen to their criticism even when it's not solicited.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we're all in the perfect place among fellow Trinis who and Trimbagonians who offer unsolicited opinions.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm seeing,
we got a 47, and Salif said things that they are saying here is a lot of my problems. Some people are finding truth today.
Okay, really good. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're rapidly running out of time. I'd quite like to have a hear of how you answered, how you came up with questions for that particular problem with the very Reverend Martin Percy. What did you thrash out, anyone in any of the groups? Maybe I could ask a pointed question, actually. Let me do that, because I think that's probably better. What were my questions? What pressures do you think Martin is under? And therefore, how is, you know, how is he, what are the pressures he's under? What did you get from that article? So this is about the emotional labor. To what degree is he having to present a certain face? And we're just using the article as evidence because that's what we have.
I unfortunately do not have the information as to who was in what group, so they're gonna have to.
Well, anyone can answer because everyone was in a group, I think, except maybe Krista Marie, who I saw in the main room. I don't know if
she didn't. I don't know if she's with us.
So anyone who's feeling. How about Olivia? Olivia had a mic on earlier. Olivia?
Hi. Yeah. Hi. No, I was just asking if the lower the number, is it the better or worse? What's to be interpreted from the numbers?
Good question. Good question.
I got the impression that the lower number meant there were more areas to work on, and the higher numbers, less things to work on, except where, like in Christian's case, it said, because the high number was generated by an extreme rather than everything tending to one area, that you should double check, you know, in reality, what's going on. That's what I understood. What was your number, Olivia?
Sir, shame.
39. That's why she's asking. No, 39 is average. You're still in the average. You're okay. You're gonna be okay, Olivia. You're gonna be okay.
We're in a range. We're in a range. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Salif said emotional labor because he was under intolerable pressure for under 2 years. Or is it over 2 years or under 2 years? I don't remember. But I remember seeing 2 years. So I think this would take a toll on him and how he would react during the process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. That the length of time that someone is under this kind of pressure really is going to have an impact. What questions might you ask him, Salif, or what questions could be asked of him to assess the degree to which he is under pressure?
Well, like when they close out the groups, the information had to stick in the group now. So we put out our questions on the So I try to remember what the person said. Well, I remember it was a group member had said a question for that one.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't remember who was in his group, so hopefully.
Yeah. Let's have one question from Sir Andrew, and the questions that could be asked. So Andrew can ask Martin to get a fair representation of how Martin has performed. What kind of things would you be able to ask someone in order to assess how they've genuinely performed. So without prompting them so that you just get the answer you want to hear, and without doing them a disservice in the questions that you kind of skew the way they, you know, might answer. Some of the say is, if, I don't know if you sense this, but throughout that emotional intelligence questionnaire, the reason we were able to say Christian probably got extremes is because you answer a question and then there are questions that are validating questions. Yeah. So when you're doing a questionnaire, you might ask a question, get some information, and then you really need to triangulate it by asking it from another perspective to see whether it corroborates or whether it diverges. And if it diverges, then it means you are either wavering on the point or you have disparate kind of points of view on a particular issue. So what could someone like Martin, so Martin, who's got this role of assessing what is right and wrong in this particular situation, what question could he ask of Martin to get a fair representation of how Martin feels, and then what validating question? Did anyone come up with anything? All right, let me ask a different question. What did you talk about in your rooms?
What improvements or successes has the college seen under your time of management? So I think Akila is saying a question, answering the first question about what question would you ask Martin. So what improvements or successes have you seen, has the college seen under your time of management?
Okay, so that's a good question. That's asking you to justify what you think you've done and whether it's been successful or not. Not only what you've done, but how has it been received? Because you may have great ideas and they may not have worked. In the oral communication class, I thought I had this great idea of creating a bulletin board where everyone could discuss things with each other. And it turned out not to be particularly effective because nobody wanted to use it. Okay, sure, Olivia. Yes, we're probably going to wrap up in another 5 minutes or so, but anyone that needs to go, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too.
Bye.
Most welcome.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, so this idea about asking someone what they've done and whether or not it's successful. So how would you assess that answer? Are you going on the basis of a strong justification, or do you have from the outset a viewpoint of whether or not you think it's been successful? What would you do, Akila? Did you get the distinction I was making?
I guess I would I guess the amount of things I've done would prove how successful my time at the college would have been compared to other, well, I guess you're not supposed to compare, but I guess to other deans, I guess.
But Keela, my question is, if you are asking that question of someone, are you measuring on the basis of their justification or a benchmark of success that you think they should have achieved? If they justify it strongly and say, well, you know, I did this and that and the other, and it was successful because I have a justification for it, or I can argue why it didn't work. Are you measuring that, or are you instead measuring the fact that you 1, 2, and 3 and they only achieved were a complete, it was a failure?
The former, not the latter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So their justification, the thing that I said first.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So that means that you would accept a justification from someone who had a good argument about why they did something, even if it didn't work.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Would you accept that from a school teacher who said something about, this is what I taught your child and they were expected to capture it? Or would you?
From what I'm trying to understand, what you're saying is that if someone, example, if someone taught something to a child and it didn't work
They didn't do well in an. Is it the student's fault or the teacher's fault?
I guess I don't think it's anyone's fault. I guess you could just change the method of how you approach to teach the child, or either maybe something he didn't grasp, he or she, the child, didn't grasp while the lesson was being taught.
Okay, but you see the way in which we ask the question, you know, generates a particular kind of answer, and it obviously has its own inherent problems. You know, that's one of the things that I'm hoping we can draw out of today's class, that we're talking about logically assessing things and the degree to which, you know, we might be asking someone an emotional question, or because when we ask about, you know, justifying your success, there is a way in which, you know, they may not have a benchmark of things to measure against, but actually be going on kind of gut and say, well, it should have worked, it didn't work, but maybe the circumstances were wrong, or maybe I didn't motivate strongly enough. You know, there are lots of variables. Yeah. All right. Let's see if we can have just one answer with respect to the college and the college's question. Okay, no. What else did you discuss? One other thing. What did you discuss?
For me, well, our group, we continued with, kind of followed the first one, which was, what do you plan to do for the future? And do these decisions benefit the students?
Okay, all right. Yeah, they make sense for sure. This idea about what do you plan to do for the future, what is the downside of asking that question? Or what did you, I mean, it's a strong question in one way, and in other ways, what do you see as the downside of it?
If I guess the plans wouldn't matter if he doesn't get reinstated.
Yeah, I mean, something along the same lines. It's almost completely speculative, isn't it? It's like, okay, what do you plan? There's no way of measuring how, I mean, the only way of measuring how good it is, the plans, is if you yourself as a college have an idea of what you want. I've been asked things like that in job interviews, like what would you do over the next, you know, what do you plan to do in this role? What do you foresee as a vision? And while it's a valid question, perhaps it's only valid measured against what the interviewers want to hear from you. If they don't like it, then they'll say, well, you're not the right fit for the job. So it is a tricky one to have to answer, I think. That's my viewpoint on it. Okay, let's have how about a final word from Greer on any of this, any of this?
Oh gosh, it's been an emotional class here.
Any take-home points you think that students should take away from regarding this topic of emotion and organization?
Yeah, I think well, now that we've gone through this, you know, definitely we're more aware. We have a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more scope on it. So hold on to that awareness. Let it serve you on a personal level. And also, you know, obviously within your groups, hopefully it helps, you know, within your group assignments, etc., in your communication and, you know, in whatever respective jobs we have and will have. We're now more experts on emotional intelligence and what we need to work on. Take the quiz a couple more times as well. And let this serve you beyond this course, I suppose. I think the magic is in the awareness of there are things I need to work on and being willing to do so, especially if you're getting feedback, unsolicited or not. You know, sometimes even that unsolicited feedback can be authentic. And everyone has a story and everyone knows something that we don't know. But my main takeaway, I think, is the counseling, and that counseling can come from a friend. It can come from a friend. It doesn't have to be a professional, but that's open to counseling, open to criticism, and open to counseling. And, you know, take it or leave it, but allow the criticism in. That doesn't mean you have to do what they say, but allow it in. Let it marinate, think about it, sleep on it, and then do you. As I like to say, I Greerize things.
Right.
I've made up my own word.
Yeah, very good, very good. So my final point is to say that what we've spoken about today in part has been processes, and as Greer is saying, to become aware of the process is great, and becoming aware of it allows you to critique a process. So critique decision making, is it emotional or logical, or am I using the emotion in a logical way, or am I going with gut instinct, which is maybe not right? Am I being irrational? Think about emotional intelligence in terms of the things that you need to work on, your self-awareness, empathy, and you know, being able to critique, and the ways in which we self-justify things that we don't want to hear. You know, are we doing that? And be mindful as well in terms of emotional labor, the difference between what we feel and what we put out, and see if we can transform the way emotion impacts us. Becomes so burdensome. We understand it's time and place. Someone's reaction isn't actually important to us beyond, you know, how they behave, but it's not, try not to internalize it, you know. And that's where I would leave it. Thank you so much. Greer, could we stop recording at this point?
Yes, we can.